Hi, how are you, Dubai? Are you feeling energetic? Great! Come on, we have been talking about our physiology, right? How it affects our psychology. So I would request you all to stand up for a moment, change a little bit of your physiology. Please, stand up for a moment. Move a little bit. Come on. Yeah? Great. How do you feel? Great. Thank you, thank you. So, my name is Fahsham Farook, and I'm a peak performance consultant. And today I'll be talking about the neuroscience of peak cognitive performance. How many of you are interested in this subject? How many of you want to perform at your peak levels to achieve your boldest goals? Great! So let's see this video and then we'll talk about it. So what we have just seen is the extraordinary performance, or sometimes we call it as impossible. So how many of you are feeling right, oh man, this is some extraordinary performance. This is impossible. How many of you are feeling? And how many of you want to know how many of you want to perform at your best levels in your domain? Great. So what's really happening here? When somebody is performing at his peak levels, when we see the impossible becomes possible, what's really happening? Is it some sort of mystical experience or spiritual experience? No. The science has the answer. And this is what exactly I'll be going deep into the science of extraordinary performance. So the impossible has a formula. So when we are witnessing the impossible in different domains, what we are actually witnessing is the quartet of internal deep emotional drive, the fire inside to achieve something big. That's number one. Number two, creativity, skills, and peak performance, expertly applied and significantly amplified. So what's the biological formula for the impossible? The neuroscience of peak cognitive performance, aka flow. The neurobiology of flow is the secret ingredient for the art of impossible. So the obvious question is, Fahsham, what is flow? So flow is a technical term, and it's technically defined as the optimal state of consciousness where you feel at your best and you perform at your best. It's your brain's peak performance state where you feel and perform at your best. So the biggest in 1970s, one of the largest studies on human optimal performance was conducted by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He passed away 3-4 months back. So he did one of the largest studies on human optimal performance in 1970s. So he traveled around the world, talked to tens of thousands of people from chess masters to brain surgeons to athletes to entrepreneurs, even old Korean ladies, even Japanese teenage gangsters. He talked to all these people, tens of thousands of these people, to understand answer for one question, and that was, at what time of their life they felt at their best, they perform at their best. And in his research, he found 6 foundational things, foundational discoveries about flow. First, what he discovered was flow is definable. We can define flow. It has got 6 core characteristics. And it starts with complete concentration. When you are in this state, your brain limits information to just one activity that is at your hand, nothing else. It limits your information, just process just one information which is just at your hand. That's first thing. Next, the merger of action and awareness. You are no more be able to distinguish yourself from the activity. Both becomes one. Your activity and yourself, it just becomes one. Number 3, sense of self vanishes. What this means is that we all have inner critic within ourselves. We'll talk details about sooner or later. But that inner critic, that self-doubt that we all have, that goes silent when you are in this state. Number 4, altered states of time. Technically, time dilation. You might have felt at some point in your life where 5 hours goes like, boom, 5 minutes. And you achieved something incredible. How many of you have felt that in your life? Where you were achieving something great? Thank you. So you are no more be able to, your prefrontal cortex is no more be able to calculate time, because your time is actually calculated in your prefrontal cortex. So you are no more be able to differentiate the past, present, and future. So you are no more worried about the horrible things that has happened in the future and the scary things that's out there in the future. And the horrible things that has happened in the past. So your brain is just focusing the deep now. Just focus on the activity that's there at your hand. So time is totally, you are no more be able to calculate time when you are in flow. Next thing is paradox of control. You feel like you are in total control when you are working on that particular activity. Even in normal condition, it looks like, out of control. You go out of control. You feel like you are the king, you are the master of that particular activity, even though it is extremely challenging. That's the reason why we have seen this in the video, and you all felt like this is impossible, this is extraordinary. This is what exactly is happening. They don't care. At the risk of their personal risk, they are ready to go even to the extent. Number 6 is autotelic experience. What this means that the activity itself is so pleasurable, so addictive. So these are the 6 things, 6 core characteristics that he discovered when he was studying about flow. The next thing what he discovered, Csikszentmihalyi, he is often regarded as the father of flow psychology. It is measurable. Because flow is definable, it is measurable. Today we have very advanced neurofeedback equipment to measure flow, because when you are in flow state, your brain, we all know about the brain waves. Brain produces a certain frequency. I don't know whether it is available here out there in the experience area. So it can be measurable. Next thing what he discovered was a spectrum of experience. What this means, it's like any other emotion. You can be in microflow and you can be in macroflow. Microflow happens when some or majority of the flow's characteristics shows up. And macroflow happens, that's extreme level of flow state, happens when all of the flow's characteristics shows up. Next thing he identified was near perfect high-speed decision making. So when he was doing this research and when he was talking to all these people in different domains, at what time of their life they were feeling at their best and they were performing at their best. And they all answered one thing: when they were in this state, everything flows seamlessly, effortlessly to the next activity. They were able to make high-speed decision making, even in those critical situations. That doesn't mean that you are not going to be making any errors in flow. You can make errors in flow, but it's near perfect, high-speed decision making. Another thing, fifth, what he discovered was that it is ubiquitous, it is universal. It could happen to anyone irrespective of gender, color, age, provided the initial conditions of flow's characteristics are met. And finally, this is probably the most important, I would say, overall well-being and life satisfaction. What he identified was that those people in his research, those who were experiencing more flow states, were those people who were experiencing real, meaningful, and happy life, overall well-being. They had great relationships. They were working on something meaningful. And when I was researching about this topic, I was literally correlate about the vision of UAE. How many of you know that UAE has a happiness minister? Today we had tolerance minister. You know, UAE has a happiness minister. How many of you know that? And one interviewer asked Sheikh Mohammed, by the way, Sheikh Mohammed, the ruler of Dubai, he wrote a book only about happiness, Reflections on Positivity and Happiness. How many of you read that book? Reflections on Positivity and Happiness. I would highly recommend to read that book. And in that he mentions, one interviewer asked Sheikh Mohammed, "Hey Sheikh, why do you want a happiness minister?" His response was very simple and clear. He said to the interviewer, "You know what Dubai has achieved in the 40, 50 years? And you know who's responsible for this? The citizens and residents of this great country. And do you know what really contributes, what really made us to make this possible, this impossible, make it possible? These are our people. This is the performance of our people. And happiness this is important point. Happiness is a prerequisite for peak performance. Many people say, I will be happy once I achieve my goals, my objectives. You are never gonna achieve that if that is there in your mind. Happiness is a prerequisite for sustained peak performance. Now, the big question is, how optimal is flow? Pretty optimal. Today, what we can say is, in science, almost all major scientific breakthroughs, what the research shows, flow plays its starring role. In sports and athletics, what it shows is that almost all gold level performance, the highest championships, Olympics, flow is at the back of these extraordinary gold level performances. In business, we really have some compelling data. So McKinsey, the business consultancy company, they did a study on their own senior executives, and what they found was that their executives were 5 times more productive when they were in flow. That means 5 times, 500% more productive. What this means is that if you come on Monday and be in the flow state and be able to operate the entire day in flow state, you could achieve what you would normally achieve in a week, you will be able to achieve in 1 day. So if you are able to spend Monday and Tuesday in flow, that means 10x performance, 10x peak performance, 1,000 times you are more productive in flow. That's the reason why I named my website 10xpeakperformance.com. You can visit them. So people were saying, man, these are some compelling data. Amazing numbers. What's really happening inside the brain? What's really going on? That is where we want to understand the flow neuroscience. to understand what's really happening inside the brains of those who does extraordinary things. Let's look into that. To understand flow neuroscience, you need to understand 4 key things. You need to know neural anatomy, networks. Neural anatomy and their networks, by the way, is the areas where something in the brain takes place. Then you want to know also about neural chemistry and neural electricity. Neural chemistry and electricity, by the way, it's a way that your brain communicates within each other and to the rest of the body. So let's take it one by one. Let's talk about neural anatomy. So before, the belief was that when your brain operates in normal condition, that means you're using less of the brain. It's called as 10% brain myth. So when your brain is performing at its peak levels, you must be using the whole of the brain. But it looks like what the science shows, it's actually backward. When you are in peak cognitive state, when you are in flow state, you are actually using the less of the brain. You are not using all of the brain. You are actually using less of the brain. And the technical term for this is transient hypofrontality. So transient means temporary. Hypo, which is the opposite of hyper, that means slow down, deactivate, calm down, shut down. And frontality refers to your prefrontal cortex, the conscious part of your brain. And this has huge impact on your performance. You might be thinking, Fahsham, what are you talking about? PFC, this is our conscious part of the brain which performs all the logical calculations, critical decisions. And you are saying when this gets deactivated, your performance, your creativity enhances. How come? Because in your PFC, when it gets deactivated, you have an area in your PFC called dorsolateral PFC, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. This is the area where your inner critic lives. That self-doubt that comes within, man, you can't do it, impossible. You can't do extraordinary performance. You cannot do that. This is so big, it's so challenging. That actually comes from your dorsolateral PFC. So when you are in flow state, that goes silent, quiet, hugely impacting your performance because you are no more doubting your bigger idea. So creativity also skyrockets. That's what I want to talk about neuroanatomically. At the network level, what it does is it basically deactivates all our fear networks, and almost all rewarding dopamine related networks all will be activated, all are activated at the network level. Now this is very interesting, neurochemistry. We all have neurotransmitters. We have been talking in the last 2 days about the hormones. So when you are in flow, your brain secretes 6 powerful neurotransmitters all at once. 6 neurotransmitters. Norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, anandamide, endorphins, and oxytocin. When norepinephrine, dopamine, it's, by the way, it's your principal focusing drugs. So when it's there in your system, your brain just focuses deeply on the task at hand. Your attention just goes deeply into the task at hand. It enhances your focus. Next comes serotonin. We have been hearing a lot about serotonin. It's your happiness chemical. When it's there in your system, it calms you down. It makes you calmer, enhancing your risk-taking ability. So when serotonin is in your system, you are ready to take bigger risk. Next comes anandamide. Anandamide, by the way, it's a painkiller. And when it's there in your system, it actually dampens down your pain. And then comes endorphins. It's a very interesting, endorphins is really powerful, pleasurable chemical. By the way, all these neurotransmitters, neurochemicals are pleasurable chemicals, addictive, but endorphins is even more powerful. Oxytocin, normally it comes when you are in group flow. I'll not be talking a lot about group flow. I'll be focusing more on the individual flow triggers. So oxytocin is basically a social group flow trigger. It happens mainly when you are working as a team. That's what actually happening at neurochemically. Now let's talk about neuroelectricity. This again is very interesting. So when your brain is processing information at the normal level, it's in your beta state. It is processing lots of information. So when you are in flow state, it actually takes from beta brainwave, then down beta, you have another wave called alpha. This is even more slower brainwave. Then below alpha, we have even more slower brainwave called theta. So when you are in flow state, it takes you from beta brainwave to the borderline between your theta and alpha, and creating a new brainwave called gamma. And why gamma matters is that this is the creative, when you are in this process, it's called as binding. I mean, all your patterns, all your big ideas connect together when your brain is operating at its gamma. Okay, now, how many of you got excited now and feeling like, man, tell me something, give me some hand tools so I can consistently operate at my flow state? How many want to consistently operate at your flow states? I'm going to give you some hand tools. These are called flow triggers. So first thing, if you want more flow in your life, you want more autonomy in your life. So what do you mean by autonomy? Autonomy is your freedom of choice. Your freedom of choosing your mind and your destiny. So now Google, they are giving 10-15% autonomy time to work for their employees so they can work on the things that really matters to them. So in 10 to 15% autonomy, it really works to trigger this state. But at the minimum level, you need autonomy to get a good night's sleep. If you're not getting good night's sleep, it doesn't work. And you also need autonomy to get regular workout, exercise. And then you need autonomy to find undistractable working time. And also, you need autonomy to chase flow. This is again a big subject. To chase flow whenever you desire. Because we all have different flow personalities. So everyone gets into flow based on their flow personalities. That itself is a big talk. All right, next, this is very interesting. Curiosity, passion, purpose. Without this, it's not going to work. So if you want more flow in your life, you want to be working on something that you are deeply curious about. You want to be working on something that you are deeply passionate about, and you should have a purpose. When you have this, all this comes together, that's how you become unstoppable. All your neurotransmitters secretes. By the way, SpaceX, every company, successful company, you can find a purpose. This is called, as in business term, it is called massively transformative purpose. And the MTP for SpaceX is make humans multi-planetary species. That's what they are living for. And how many of you heard 2 weeks back, the biggest rocket that SpaceX ever created, it really blasted off. How many of you heard about that? Now, I'm guessing in another 2-3 weeks, they are going to make it successful. Fahsham, why are you saying this so confidently? Because as far as SpaceX employees are concerned, Elon Musk was able to inject this purpose, MTP, because as far as their employees are concerned, they are saving the humanity. They are saving the planet, significantly improving the performance, productivity, creativity. So for sure, in the next few weeks, you're going to hear that they successfully launched world's biggest rocket. So, if you want more flow again, you want clear goals. You want to have very crystal clear clarity. Why anxiety, stress comes? Because we don't know clearly what, when, why, and how we are going to tackle our biggest challenges, biggest problems. So the more clearer you make, what actually you are doing is you are actually reducing your cognitive load. The more you reduce your cognitive load, the more your brain is going to perform. Your cognitive performance is going to enhance. So if you are working on big challenging goals, chunk that down into minor goals and tackle that first. And then go to the next. So make it clear, reduce your cognitive load. Because if you're working on bigger things, it's like you're thinking, you're overthinking, you are like opening multiple browsers in your brain. That increases your cognitive load, decreasing your cognitive performance. Without this, there is no flow. Because flow follows focus. Complete concentration only on the task at hand. And this works only if you're working on some big projects, and if you cannot put a signboard on your door saying, please get off, I am flowing, this is not going to work. Complete concentration on the task at hand. No notification, no phones, nothing. Just on the task at hand. How long? 90 to 120 minutes. But if you're really working on some big, challenging jobs where creativity is so important, then 4 hours of undistracted time, so crucial. Then immediate feedback. So clear goals tell you what, when, how you're going to do, where to put your attention at this time, but immediate feedback tell you at real time how can you make it better. On real time, when you're getting immediate feedback, how can you make it better? Your brain enters into that flow state. And finally, the challenge skill balance is probably the most important of flow triggers, I would say. Because if your challenge is too big and your skill set is too low, your brain feels like, man, this is impossible. This is really impossible now. And all your fear hormones, cortisol, norepinephrine, adrenaline, all comes into your system, impacting your performance. When your challenge is lower than your skill set, you feel bored. Your brain feels not rewarded, no dopamine in your system. It feels bored. It's not going to focus its attention. So this has to be slightly, your challenge must have to be slightly higher than your skill set. So you might be asking, Fahsham, what if my challenge is too big? You have to increase your skill sets. You have to increase your skill set. So that's it about flow triggers. These are your hand tools. If you consistently implement, these are your hand tools to on demand let your brain to trigger your flow state. That's it. You can see more at visit 10xpeakperformance.com. This is just a portion of one of the steps that we help our clients with. And you can follow me on my social media platforms. And if you have any questions, you can mail me at Fahsham@10xpeakperformance.com. Thank you, guys. Thank you.